Hello everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Idiots in the Wild. First up today we have Roommate Moves Out Over $6 by Scary Nibehe. My freshman year of college, I, currently 26 and female, became really close with this girl, Avery. She and I were the same age, same major, and we had almost everything in common. We immediately became the best of friends. And that quickly became extremely toxic for many reasons. We had the same opinions on almost everything, but the things we disagreed on, they became huge deals even if they weren't. She was one of those people who, if she didn't like someone, you weren't allowed to like that person either. If she thought a song was great, you had to think that song was great too. If I expressed anything that differed from her, a big blowout would ensue. But I also never felt closer to someone. Literally never met someone who was so like me in so many ways, aside from what seemed to me like jealousy, maybe? I still don't really know. Great insecurity is like she's not capable of holding a thought in her head without someone validating it. Anyway, about 3/4 of the way through my freshman year, she has a big blowout on me because she finds out I like the show Sex Education. And she thinks that show is racist because it has no POC characters. I don't think that's accurate, but okay. I tell her it does, in fact, have POC characters, quite a few of them. Wasn't she the gut behind that? Apparently, that was the last straw for her, because she cut me off for this comment, and we didn't talk for nearly 7 months. Fast forward to November the following year, I randomly get a long DM from Avery saying how sorry she is, how much she misses me, how she wishes she could make it right. Just change your whole personality. I'm immediately accepting because I'm a forgiving person to a fault, trauma response. We meet up a week later, get matching tattoos, and instantly we're hanging out every day, all day again, like nothing ever happened. In fact, she's even closer and more supportive and less argumentative than before. Everything is great. Suddenly her car breaks down. She also just got fired from her job the week before. She lives in the middle of nowhere with her awful grandmother. I live 2 hours away in the city. I tell her, come live with me until you can get on your feet. I know what it's like to not have anything going for you in a small town, with no way to get around. She moves in with me, no job, no savings, no car. She's been at my place for a week, job hunting online, when all of a sudden she has a medical emergency. Usually I wouldn't downplay something like that, but she really never had any paperwork or evidence of what she claimed to be dealing with, and her symptoms would come and go whenever it was most convenient for her. It seemed she isn't going to be able to work for at least a few weeks. So I'm paying for everything. I never asked her for rent money because it was never meant to be a permanent thing. I'm buying her food, taking her to appointments, paying her phone bill for 2 months. Finally, I said enough. I got her an interview at my retail job and she got hired. Then she missed the first week and a half of work for another medical emergency, and I had to cover her shifts. At this point, I was getting annoyed. After a couple of months of working there, calling out at least once a week and making me look terrible because I recommended her, she gets off a few hours before me one night. I ask her to pick up stuff for dinner. She does. I get home and she immediately hits me with, "You need to send me $12 for groceries." I look at the receipt sitting inside the bag. The total for the entire grocery haul was $12 and some change. Mind you, this is not a lot of money. I could easily send it. But I've also been paying for everything for this girl for almost 5 months at this point, and even though she's had a job for months, I'm still paying her way for everything. I even paid the full adoption fee for a cat we adopted together. Well, then it's your cat. Remember this, it's important later. I've given her a place to live, a job, food, weed, a cat, friendship, morning coffees I couldn't afford, and she's gonna ask me to cover the entire $12 dinner? Like, girl, I was over it. I told her I would send her $6 because that was half, and she was also eating the food. She began to moan and groan about how she was awful and absolutely ridiculous for expecting to get reimbursed. How could she ever ask for anything ever again? And she's just the worst friend ever. Yeah, sounds like it. All in that sarcastic feel-bad-for-me tone of voice. I stood there and said, "No, I don't think you understand. You are a leech." She immediately got up and tried to fight me. Luckily, I shoved her off and got up to my room and locked the door. I listened as she packed her stuff and left. Yay! She called a friend to come get her because, again, no car. When I went downstairs after she had left, I discovered that the cat that I paid to adopt was gone. She stole my fucking cat. Call the police. That is actually illegal. I don't care that she's the one that found the cat. I paid for her. She's my baby. I've still never seen my poor kitty to this day, almost 5 years later. Oh, hell no. Turns out she ended up going to live with the friend who came to pick her up, who lived with her boyfriend of nearly 3 years at the time. Within a month, that friend was homeless and Avery was still living in that apartment. They ended up getting engaged and moving to Florida before breaking it off. From what I hear, good riddance. The friend who was impacted and I are very good friends now, so at least there's that. There are no words. Apart from the ones I just read. Story number 2. Can you give me a ride? By Wild Green Tree. I live and work in a bougie tourist town in the USA. One of my jobs is private driving, mainly taking people around in an Escalade to wineries and fancy restaurants. The car is my boss's. It's rented out by the hour. You get the idea. Anyways, the other night I was dropping a mother and daughter off at their hotel around 11:30 p.m. The customers I drove were absolutely lovely people. I had been driving them since 9:30 that morning and had a very nice time taking them around the area. I asked if there was anything else they needed, said goodnight, and made sure they were inside the building before getting back into the car. As I'm buckling my seatbelt, I realize that someone is staring at me from outside the car. I make the unfortunate mistake of looking up and make eye contact with this well-dressed lady standing with a group of other people in formal wear, probably in their 30s, through the passenger window. I do the customer service smile and nod, and then refocus my attention on getting the car started and getting the hell home. Suddenly, there is banging on my passenger side window. I look back over and this lady is smacking the window open-handed like a toddler. I can only assume she is an inebriated wedding guest, as there was a wedding at the resort that evening. I roll down the window, mostly to get her to stop, and partially because I was startled and wondering what the hell was going on. "Hi, do you need something?" "Can you give me a ride?" Mind you, this is a 4-star resort. Very posh. Only 4 stars, come on now. In a very pricey tourist town. There are at least 2 bell people about 10 feet away, not to mention the front desk staff inside. She could have easily procured help with securing transportation, whether it be Uber or a taxi or a private driver. The service I am hired for is always scheduled at least a week in advance. It's a small high-end company and is definitely not a ride service. The vehicle I drive is not marked besides legal licensing numbers, so my brief interaction with my passengers was the only reason she had any idea I was hired to drive. I get a feeling she just thought, person, car, give ride. I think that's probably the thought process is there. "I'm so sorry, but I'm a private driver and I'm not authorized to allow unscheduled passengers in the vehicle. I'm sure the hotel staff would be more than happy to help you arrange transportation." She scowls back, taken aback. "That's stupid, whatever." She turned back to her friend, and as I was rolling up the window, I heard this lady mocking me to her friend. "I'm a private driver, I can't take you." I just rolled my eyes and drove away. The window was up, and I know better than to engage with stupid, especially when combined with intoxication. Almost like one leads to the other. But still, I could have been a guest at the hotel, dropping the rest of the group off. I could have raised a big stink about it. Hell, I could have been ill with gun fever and escalated everything. Obviously, I didn't, because she didn't actually harm the car, and honestly, I was tired and just wanted to get home after a long day. But still, the entitlement of it all. Maybe she hurt the car's feelings. I don't know. Story number 3 is Next Time I'll Be Sure to Call an Expert by JR0637. I began work as a cooperative extension agent straight out of grad school, and right before the pandemic started. For those unfamiliar, a cooperative extension agent is the public outreach branch of land-grant universities. Our primary responsibility is to connect homeowners and farmers with university research and encourage use of best practices that help the individuals meet their goals in the lowest impact way. Traditionally, extension was only for agriculture, but it now extends past its agriculture roots, and depending on the university in your state and office in your specific county, topics can be anything, like financial literacy, family and consumer sciences, community development, mental health, etc. I was technically an agriculture agent, but I specialized in horticulture, which meant that I was dealing with trees, fruits, vegetables, lawns, gardens, and bugs. Unlike a lot of counties in my state, part of our district's daily operation was to make house calls, which was a huge blessing when you start your job in January 2020. Those excursions not only made it easier to answer questions, but they kept me from going stir-crazy during the pandemic. There was never a risk of spreading sickness either, because all my time was spent looking at sick plants outside and diagnostic questions like, "What's wrong with my tree?" or "Will my tree live?" I would say that out of all the questions I answered in my 4.5 years on the job, 3/4 of them were about trees. Those tree questions often came with additional risks that I had to outline to the landowner. If the tree ended up being a hazard and falling on someone or something, I wasn't strictly liable thanks to some laws in our state that protect educators acting in good faith, but my conscience would never let me live it down. Because of this, I always erred on the side of caution when it came to assessing a tree's hazard potential, and was very upfront with the individual on my estimation of a tree's risk, and the steps they would need to take to keep the tree from becoming a greater risk. Most of the time, the tree was manageable, but would take extra vigilance on the homeowner's part to make sure the problem did not get worse. If the tree was an immediate hazard, I recommended immediate removal. I was barely able to get comfortable with my job before I get acquainted with an EP, and I had many interactions with her over my time as an extension agent. Too bad you can't recommend immediate removal of people, eh? She would call me over the smallest question, and honestly, I loved answering them. My personality is one that thrives on mysteries and improvements, so her questions never bothered me. She lived in a small town and absolutely loved to garden. My visits to her house would last at least half an hour while she showed off her newest gardening experiments. When she had the opportunity, she participated in our volunteer training, Master Gardeners, and was at many of our volunteer events. All in all, she was one of my favorite repeat customers. That makes her specific story all the more confusing. Toward the end of my 3rd year on the job, the town she lived in experienced some violent straight-line winds that toppled about 2/3 of the city's tree canopy, oh dear, including all but one of her trees, a gnarly silver maple at the end of her driveway. Just to put into perspective how much she loved to garden, I'm convinced that she went through an actual grieving process when the rest of her trees were felled. Initially, she asked me to confirm that the silver maple left standing was not a hazard, and there were no indications that it was. I told her as much, and that was that. For the moment, anyway. 2 weeks later, I get another call from her. This time she sounds agitated. "OP, someone from the city who was here to clean up the tree debris backed their truck into my tree and took a chunk out of the trunk. Can you come take another look at it?" "No problem." I get to the tree, and there is a sizable gash out of the bark and underlying wood. "The city truck really did a number on it." "No kidding." I went up to observe the wood under the bark, and while it looked nasty, there was still no indications that it was a hazard. "Do you think it will live?" The trunk didn't damage most of the underlying wood, so I think that as long as you monitor it for decay, it should pull through. I didn't go into my usual level of detail because of her experience and training, which ended up being a mistake. 2 weeks after that conversation, I got a call from her again. and I don't remember the exact details about why she called, but the increasingly malign silver maple got brought up again. As long as you monitor it to make sure decay doesn't enter the underlying wood, it will be okay. For the rest of its life? I squinted. Yes? You didn't say that when you came to look at it. I squinted again. I didn't think I needed to, with her experience and training. EP, once the wood in the trunk is exposed, the tree will do its best to heal the wound, but decay will get in there eventually. The tree still has plenty of life left in it, and it's no hazard to your house. Her tone changed immediately. So I have to spend time checking on this tree when I could have gotten reimbursement from this, there it is, city for damaging it. I thought I'd made this clear during the second visit. I'm sorry if I didn't make that clear, but yes, that pretty much sums it up. Then came the zinger. Well, next time I guess I'll call an expert. She hung up. I was stunned for a couple of reasons. First, our house calls are completely free. Getting a tree expert out to her small town to look at a tree and give her the testimony she would need to get reimbursed by the city would have been prohibitively expensive, eaten up any money she would have gotten from the city, and likely would have resulted in a removal recommendation, which would mean additional costs. We were in the poorest area of our state, so I always tried to keep trees around when I could, and had to balance costs against risks. Second, between my undergraduate degree and employment at landscaping companies and parks and rec departments, I had maybe 8 years of horticulture experience, and I'm pretty sure she still had me beat. So she should have understood what the injury to the tree meant for management. And lastly, there were the positive interactions I had with her previously, which did not prepare me at all for this bizarre 180. I sulked for the rest of the day. I'm a stewer, not a spewer, but was back to normal the next day and just let it roll off me. I chalked it up to agitation from potentially losing another tree. The real kicker of this story is that up until I left the job to return to school, I interacted with her at least 10 more times, and they were like my first experiences with her, polite, even pleasant. She never brought up the one phone call, and neither did I. No reason to kick the hornet's nest. I'm pretty sure she just left the tree as is and didn't raise a stink about it, and to my knowledge, the tree is still standing, one of the healthiest, strongest silver maples, which isn't saying much. It was the most sour experience I had in the job, all things considered. If that was the worst experience in 4.5 years, I was pretty lucky. It did give me one important lesson that I will take with me for the rest of my life. When money is involved, people get weird. So, be ready for people you think you know to act in completely unexpected ways once money enters the picture. Story number 4 is What Are You Smiling About by Nininator2432. Many years ago, I was working at a mid-sized corporate chain and had every Tuesday off. There was one fellow delivery driver, B, who was always super late. Like about half the time he was an hour late, it was just expected. If he showed up 30 minutes late, people would joke about him being early. And they didn't fire him. Interesting. In the past, they'd usually have the one morning driver working 11 a.m. to 8 p.m., one of us from 4 p.m. to 9 p.m., and the other from 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. Well, since this guy was regularly an hour late, so when he worked, the manager would schedule us both at 4 p.m., with me being the 10 p.m. driver, knowing he'd get there around 5 p.m. It's a Wednesday. I was coming off day work, fully refreshed. We were both due in at 4 p.m. I'm responsible, and I get through the door at like 3:56 p.m. As soon as I did, I saw the two managers were waiting and started busting out laughing. I didn't really understand the humor involved in this. They said, "Oh, B said he was going to show up early today so he could take a large order. He saw it come through yesterday." There were two separate orders, one due at 4:15 p.m., the other at 4:45 p.m. Two different sides of a large corporate building. The morning driver was already on the first order. He had just left. They all wanted me to get it because he's perpetually late. Well, a pizza to a nearby apartment complex pops up, and everyone was annoyed. It was just a large pepperoni, and they were loading plus cutting the big order. So I took one from there and went out the door. Figured he'd get it. Not a big deal is part of the job. I get back from there at 4:27 p.m. and he's still not here. So I get the big order. It's 30 large pizzas, damn, and take it, and they tip me $80. I left figuring it would be a $25 to $30 tip. Still happy to take it, but $80? This was back pre-COVID when $80 was worth more. I hardly ever made that much in tips on a weeknight working on a full shift. Normally made about $45 to $60, so an $80 tip, that's basically 2.5 times my money for the night, and I'm super happy. I get back to the store at 5:08 p.m. and had a smile on my face the whole ride back. The manager asked about it and made a comment about how he was so glad I got it. B was still not there at 5:08 p.m. After he said he would be there early, I start doing the dishes, then a few minutes later he walks in. The manager sarcastically says, "I thought you were going to be early today." Then he starts going on about how he really tried to show up for work on time but got stuck in bad traffic. Right. The whole time he's ranting, I'm just sitting there smiling. He gives me this look and says, "What are you smiling about?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm very happy right now. I got an $80 tip on that order." Then he stormed outside and pouted like a baby the whole night. This is my second best story while working as a pizza driver. And the fifth and final story today is entitled "Customer Demands My Mom Give Her Free Food After Mom Donated Food to a Women's Shelter and Soup Kitchen" by H2 Zarni. This happened back in 2018, and this is not my story but rather that of my mom. She only told us about this a few days ago at my dad's birthday party, so thought I should maybe share it. My family and I are immigrants from Poland. We moved here in 2006 after my dad received a job offer due to his career as a chemical engineer. My mom previously worked as a model, as well as having done some limited acting work, starring in a few TV shows as a minor character, and commercials in Poland, Germany, and the Netherlands back when we lived in Europe. However, when we moved here, she decided she didn't want to continue her modeling or acting work here. Hence, she chose to study to become a baker. My dad still works for the same firm that sponsored him, and my mom now works as a manager at a bakery. Anyway, so the bakery my mom works at does this charity thing where they donate cupcakes, cookies, or brownies to a local soup kitchen and women's shelter. They do this every Saturday, I think. One evening in 2018, my mom was working the cash register. This woman, Jane, from the women's shelter, arrived to pick up the brownies. My mom handed Jane the boxes of brownies and she left. Note that I don't actually know Jane's name, as Mom never actually mentioned her real name. However, I just find it easier to refer to people by name, hence I chose to call her Jane. As Jane left, the woman behind her, Karen, then came up to the counter, pointed at Jane as she was in the parking lot, and angrily asked, "Did you just give free food to that black woman?" My mom explained to her that the bakery's owner has an arrangement with a nearby soup kitchen and women's shelter to give them free goods, as well as this having been something that was arranged by the owner years ago. Also, mind your own beeswax, ho. Karen then said something along the lines of, "Well, in that case, give me a box of brownies as well." My mom then packed a box of 12 brownies, but when she told Karen the price, Karen was apparently offended that she was being charged. Karen then asked why she has to pay when others get special treatment. My mom then explained to Karen again that what they do for the soup kitchen and women's shelter is not special treatment, but rather charity. Karen then said something along the lines of, "So you give out free food to lazy people, who are probably already on food stamps and not hard-working people like me," followed by accusing my mom of being a self-hating racist by giving preferential treatment to black people and immigrants. They really don't heal themselves, do these idiots? Karen then apparently started attacking my mom for her accent. Yeah, but your mother's a racist, right? Accusing her of giving preferential treatment to other immigrants, and then threatening to call immigration on my mom if she doesn't give her free brownies as well. My mom then calmly told Karen, "If you want free food, there's a soup kitchen nearby just north of Sherman Park." Karen, offended by this, said things along the lines of, "Do you think you're better than me?" I mean, I think your mom's better than her, but okay. "Do you think I'm poor or something?" "No, I think you're a fucking moron." My mom responded by saying, "Well, since you're demanding free food, then yes, probably." This got Karen angrier and shouting at her. Additionally, anticipating what Karen was going to say next, my mom then mentioned to Karen that she, my mom, is the acting manager of the store, followed by asking Karen to leave. Karen then threatened to call immigration again. I don't think they have a baked goods section. What would be the point? On my mom, to which my mom just responded by saying, "If you want, we can just call 911 right now, and they can maybe resolve this matter for us themselves," as well as my mom pointing to the security cameras in the shop. Probably realizing this wasn't getting her anywhere, Karen just stormed off. According to my mom, I really want brownies now. This is not the only time she had to deal with a racist or rude customer, or both, but definitely one of the most entitled ones she's ever dealt with. And that brings us to the end of today's video. Big thanks to everyone who allowed me to use their stories, even although some of them made me want brownies. If you'd like to support the channel and help fund my brownie habit, then you can sign up for my Patreon page, which is linked down in the description. You'll also find a link there to my merchandise store on Teespring. If you do sign up for Patreon, you get early access to the videos on Monday. I post the links there, and I also give them to my mods on Discord, because my mods are probably good people. I mean, I assume they are. Nobody's perfect. Anyway, I think that's everything. Oh yeah, if you need to send me a message, you can send that to kingofthecities@gmail.com. I've also written that out down in the description if you need to see how it's spelled. If you need to send me a shout-out request, try and do it a week before. Actually, try and do it more than a week before, because I record the videos a week ahead. So if you need it on a specific date, and you tell me a couple of days before, that's not going to happen, because that video is already uploaded. And if you have any business inquiries, or what's the other thing? Oh yeah, you want to send in a story. That's always appreciated. You can send them all there. That's everything for now. Before we go, what is your favorite sweet treat? If you're going to indulge, when you're out shopping, what's something like your go-to, you think, I deserve a treat for being good and buying this food that I will then take home and eat and share with family, if you're shopping for a family, or in my case, share with myself, because I shop for myself. It's a tough old life, buying food, eating it. Dear oh dear. But what are you going to do? What are you going to do? For me, my favourite is frequently caramel shortcake, or lately, my local supermarket has been, those Tony's Chocolate Lonely bars? I really like those, and I've tried all the ones available in local stores. Not all the ones available, but all the ones in local stores. So my local supermarket, Morrison's, has started doing their knockoff variety of that. Smaller bars, although I've noticed the Tony's has actually started doing smaller bars as well now, because those bars are hefty, the normal size ones. And I still eat it all, but I'm trying to be a good boy. Reduce what I eat, so smaller bars being available is a good thing. So anyway, Morrison started doing their own version, which are actually different flavors, or somewhat different flavors, and they're actually quite nice. Not as nice as the Tony's ones, but they are quite nice. Let me know what you think in the comment below. And with that, I'm going to head off for now, so until next time, thank you very much for watching, and take very good care of yourselves. Bye bye.